Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 25th, 2021 City Council meeting. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stacy, if I could ask you to please call the roll.
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, Councilman at Large, present.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor, Council at Large here.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky, present.
Councilman William X. Conlon.
Councilman William X. Conlon, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Elizabeth Johnston.
Present.
Councilman Mitchell Galliano, absent. Councilwoman Robin Hamilton.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton, 5th District, present.
Councilman Peter Massaro.
Councilman Peter Massaro, President, 6th District.
Councilwoman Trinae McGee.
Councilwoman Trinae McGee, 7th District, present.
Councilwoman Crystal Finelli, absent. Councilman Robert Bruno.
Councilman Robert Bruno, 9th District, present.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Ronald Quagliani.
Council at Large, Ron Quagliani, present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Stacy. Before we enter into public session, I'd just like to take a moment of silence. Since our last meeting, Carol Roberts has passed away. Carol Roberts was a longtime paraprofessional with the West Haven Board of Education, and if we could just take a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we will enter into public session. Just to repeat the rules, if anyone is new, there's a one-time speaking rule. Please raise your hand to be recognized. When you approach the podium, give your name and address for the record. We ask you to be respectful to the council and state your concerns as concisely as possible, as it appears there are a lot of people that would like to speak this evening. That being said, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the City Council? Mr. Frazzolone.
Good evening, Paul Frazzolone, 19 Bloom Street, West Haven, Connecticut. I'm a lifelong resident of West Haven, and it seems always West Haven gets the mud slapped in their face. My thing is, I'm not blaming the mayor, I'm not blaming the finance committee, I'm blaming the process. I credit you, the city council people, who are part-time workers for the city, and we all love you and thank you. In July, when you guys noticed something wrong, you asked for an audit. My thing is, if the first check that was deposited was in February, what happened to March, April, May, June? There has to be some oversight. I'm not saying all the oversight's going to come from the city council, but the finance director. The finance director and the person accused are the ones that were in charge of this funds. What happened to the finance director? Was both of his eyes closed, one eye closed, or one eye half open? I mean, that's where the ball should fall first. Where's his credibility? If anyone is to resign, besides the person that just resigned, it should be the finance director. You guys did your due diligence come in July and seeing some discrepancies. You asked for the audit, which is awesome. Gambling is an addiction. It's just like that guy that bets the 1 o'clock game on football. He loses. 4 o'clock, what's he doing? He's doubling down to try to win his money back from the 1 o'clock game. Then when they lose the 1 and the 4, they're betting at the 8 o'clock game. The casinos, yes, it's great. The state's making tax money, but they're creating this type of environment where people get sucked into the quicksand. And the quicksand is gambling, gambling, gambling. They're looking for places to get money. Mike's not the first person that I know that went down in something like this. But my thing, the whole thing is, as a lifelong resident of West Haven, the accountability from the finance department. And if anyone is to resign, I really think it should be the finance director. He should have picked up this red flag, if not the end of February, definitely by the end of March. You know, you can't say, well, it's under the mayor's watch. Yes, the guy that is a captain of a ship is only as good as the guys that fix the engines. If the ship doesn't make it far, this guy gets red flagged. So my thing is, I thank you for doing what you guys did in July. I think it was awesome that you guys seen something wrong, asked for the independent audit, and then down the road, you guys caught this big, nasty 600-plus red flag. You know, I heard, everyone's getting this information, like, none of the facts are totally out there for all of us. I heard today, well, there's 2 people in Branford that are involved in this, there's someone in Hartford involved in this. Maybe true, it may be not. But I just think, I'm tired of West Haven always getting slapped in the face. It's the credibility that irks me. Where's the accountability from the finance department? So that's my concern. Now, go back a couple of meetings ago, I asked you guys to look into something for me in regards to the tax office. Besides Colleen, who just brought it to my attention tonight, nobody's got back to me. So please, do your research on that issue, because the finance director is going to be leaving very soon. And before we go into a new cycle of a new tax collector, let's resolve this matter and move forward with it. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Frazzalone, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? Mr. Brown?
Good evening, Sean Brown, 56 Highview Avenue. Once again, I come to you. We've had this problem before, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. I brought up 3.5 years ago what happened to the $1.5 million. We're talking about $639,000 missing. You say he has a problem with gambling. How long did this gambling go on for? Okay? How did he manage to have a company and got past all of you? He did it behind your back. And you are all praising him in the paper, telling him he's a good guy. He could have stole over $500,000. What is there any good about that? He abused his authority. He had too much access to money, and you think he's a good guy. That's not the route we expect our representatives to take. For you to take that sounds very political. You can take it any way you want to take it. But as a citizen, that's wrong. What happened to the $1.5 million? He went to Hartford, took pictures with 2 other state representatives and our mayor. How do we know there wasn't money taken out of that? I'm still trying to figure out what happened. You got 2 buildings in Allentown put up, and nothing's going on down there. You had a backup in the Allentown library / really the community center in that building. There was a backup there. So maybe you want to answer the question I asked you for the last 3 years. What happened to the $1.5 million? Maybe the Fed should be listening to this. And how dare our council overlook this, or you let him get away with this? You don't even challenge it. You praise him for it. How do you get reelected? That's the problem. Because this is a disgrace. This is why West Haven looks the way we look in the state of Connecticut. Because of stuff like this. We overlook it and act like, oh, this is no big deal. $639,000, and they're still investigating. That's a problem. That's a real problem. Like I said, the chickens are coming home to roost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? Ms. Bias?
Hello, my name is Portia Bias. Do we still state who we are and our address?
Please.
155 Bull Hill Lane. And I just wanted to address the council and say that some things seem to be overlooked. I don't know if it's not being noticed, if you're not reading through everything as the documents are being presented to you, if you don't have time, if you're skimming over, or if you're just plain being a rubber stamp. Okay, I'm not going to necessarily talk about the funds, the missing funds. I'll leave that up to the FBI, okay? I came here to talk about a liquor store that has been given a permit that is in the same plaza as a daycare, learning center, and a playground. So, if you read through everything when it was presented to you by the planning and zoning, in which case it went through planning and zoning, got approved, came through the council, and got approved, the council and planning and zoning actually approved a liquor store next to a daycare, learning center, and playground? How did that get by you? No one objected? Did anyone disapprove? I'll wait for the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Byers, for your comments. Just for the record, the council does not approve liquor permits. The Planning and Zoning Commission and the State Liquor Commission does, and that application never came in front of this body. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city, sir?
My name is King, with My State Transparency. I run a YouTube, me and my lady run a transparency page on YouTube and all major...
I'm sorry, could I just have your name and address for the record?
My name is King, and I'm not going to give my address because I don't have to.
Okay. I'm not sure that's accurate, but I don't have my corp counsel
definitely
here, so
accurate.
I'll let you continue.
Legally, I don't have to give my name.
Okay.
Right?
Mr. Corp counsel?
Guys?
Gentleman is contesting whether he has to give his address for the record.
You are the chair, you control public session. Do you feel he needs to give his address for public session in order to identify himself, that we know he's,
That's unconstitutional. I'll be very careful if I was you.
to you, the chair, that is my answer.
So are you a West Haven resident?
I don't have to answer that question.
All right. Well, then I think I'd like to take comment from West Haven residents first, and then I can take your comment.
Are you denying my right to speak?
No, I'm not. I'm just delaying it.
Okay. I'm not going nowhere, just so you know that.
I don't want you to, but
Okay.
I'd rather hear from the West Haven residents first.
Oh, okay.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Margaret Ashley, 1 Sanford Street, West Haven, Connecticut. It's been a long time since I've been here because we had COVID, but my suggestion is, they have that property, where is that, on Elm Street, I think it is, that they tore down all the houses and everything. I've been in West Haven for a long time. I would really like to see a senior housing, not housing, but development, gated, and let the seniors have everything, because they have it every place else. I think we need one, and it's down by the shore, because the property is just sitting there. Even if you get that, maybe I might move in. So I would like to see a nice gated community over there for us seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ashley, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? Ma'am?
First of all, I have to put this down. I think.
Sure.
Well, I'm not going to talk about, my name is Erminia Gaeta, and I live at 58 West Walk
Thank you.
in West Haven. So I am a resident. Oh, okay. Thank you. What I'm going to talk about, I want to ask you all, do you know, this morning I learned something that, I don't know if any of the residents know about, of the rule that the state is doing of eliminating zoning for the one-family house. If you own a 900 square feet home, you could divide, they could give it to a developer, and they could make small apartment to invade the whole the city, to eliminate the one-family house. I don't know if they have, they're not zoning, they're eliminating the zoning because they want to eliminate, quote, racism. I don't know what the one-family house costs for racism, but that's what they want to do. So Brentford, they opted out of the state ruling. Are we going to do the same thing in West Haven? It doesn't affect me. I live in a condo. So, but I mean, for the beautiful one-family house that they have, that the people sweat their life to live in a one-family, are going to be forced to not to make not to have a one-family. So, are we going to? Is West Haven going to opt out of it? Do the people know about that rule that the governor is forcing? So, and the cities, they could opt out of it. So I hope that you have the wisdom of opting out of it, because it's not right. Okay, thank you. I will complain of other things other time. This is it.
Thank you very much. I do believe those discussions are taking place with the City Planning and Zoning and Corp Counsel's office regarding opt-out, but thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the City Council? Mrs. Krasinski?
Okay, Margaret A. Krasinski, 1 Robar Street in the Allentown section. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for getting to put up those signs on Cellini Place. Well, last week was certainly a shock, what happened here at City Hall. Now, are we going to get that money back that was taken from us? Have things been put in place for the remainder of the money that's still, I guess, here, taken out of that phony account from that $1.2 million that we did receive from the state of Connecticut? I can't believe it.
I can't go back
I know
and
you
forth,
can't,
yeah.
but you're shaking your head, so I assume you've got my point. It was certainly a shock because I got to know that person. I really admired him. But I guess money does do a thing. I'm very sad about it. I hope new procedures are put in place so it doesn't happen again. Because we're going to be receiving more money. Because I thought we received money to pay for those vaccinations that we did receive and all the people that were involved in it, because that ran beautiful. I'm happy for the way it was handled. All the people that were involved. Now, I don't know what else to say, but it certainly is sad, because that person did do a good job on the things that he was involved in, because this really is a shock. Well, good luck, people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Krasinski. My understanding is that the mayor will give some comments regarding an update on those funds this evening. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the City Council? For a second time, anyone from the public like to address the city? Mr. Lewis?
Good evening, Council. John Lewis, 10 Peppermill Drive, West Haven. Couple questions. Up to this point, I haven't heard been a monthly accounting of being brought from the Finance Department, brought to the Council regarding the use of these COVID CARES Act funds or ARPA funds from when they were brought forward. Till today, 7/24, I don't have any, documentation. I don't know if you have one of questions that have been asked, if the finance director was brought before you to ask any questions. I haven't seen anything. We know some of it has gone one way, but where's the rest of it? Okay, and again, to this point, there has been one question. Secondly, there are a lot of folks, first responders, others, that I've spoken to, that worked overtime. According to my knowledge, they didn't receive these funds. Just very concerned about that and would like to get to the bottom of it. Also, just would like to know from the mayor where the, how these numbers will come up with for these this overtime pay. These, I call them bonuses because salaried employees who are exempt should not be receiving overtime pay, okay? You have two different pots of money. If it's from the CARES Act, okay, so that's premium pay. That's something separate. If it's out of the city budget, where did it come from? So just like to get an idea and accounting for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? For a second time, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? For a third and final time, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? Sir, are you willing to give your name and address for the record?
I already gave my name. I'm not willing to give my address.
Then you're outside of the scope of the rules of this body, and then I will not be able to let you speak under public comment. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council?
You told him he'd be able to speak after everybody in the city spoke.
I asked him if he would give his name and address like every other citizen did here.
Just know that.
Last call, anyone else from the public like to address the city council? Seeing none, public comment is now closed.
Give my letter for intent to sue in the morning, sir.
Since most people are here, obviously, due to the recent events and because of the priority with the recent events, I'm going to adjust the agenda and bring the CARES Act grant update up to this point in time in the agenda. And I'd like to ask the mayor to please give us an update from the last time that we met 2 weeks ago.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Chairman Quagliani and members of the City Council for allowing me to give an update on the CARES Act COVID-19 funding audit and the emergency controls that I put in place since my discovery of alleged irregular and fraudulent payments. The accounting firm Cohn Resnick has been assigned by the Office of Policy and Management to conduct a forensic audit on the federal CARES Act COVID-19 funding. The city will submit all documents and reports requested by the audit team, and I have assured the city's full cooperation to execute a smooth, facilitated, and thorough investigation of these funds. The city's audit firm, Clifton, Larson & Allen, CLA, is also in the process of conducting the annual audit of city finances for fiscal year 2021. This audit will include all city and Board of Education funding. As I mentioned, I have instituted emergency spending controls while these funds are audited, and we review the city's internal control structure. The audit teams will also be reviewing the financial controls and making recommendations to assure that something like this does not happen again. The emergency controls put in place include that all payments of $5,000 or greater after normal department and finance office approvals must be reviewed and approved by me or my executive assistant before a payment is released. Obviously, the mayor's office would not normally be involved in this process, but under the current circumstances and until I have complete control structure, I feel this extra step is needed and necessary. Thank you again for allowing me to issue this update tonight, and I will update you as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I could open it up to the council if they have any questions. I guess, Mayor, the question that I have is recognize, and I'm happy to hear that there are emergency controls put in place, because I think, this council as well as the community want to know that funds can't potentially still be walking out the door, right? So I think that I'm thankful for that. I guess the question is we all know that we have to wait for the audit findings to make sure we have a clear understanding of what took place. What is the normal length of time for a particular audit, and will they give us intermittent updates? So if there's some gap that really needs council action right away, I would prefer not to wait till the end of the audit, but maybe to do that. I don't know if that's how, if that's how things would work, that they would give us intermittent updates or not.
Well, again, they are doing the audit now. The forensic audit and the annual audit have both been started. As far as they have not briefed me on how the information would come, I don't know if they will wait until the end. Normally with the annual audit, if there is a problem or any issue with the audit, they usually will come to me, and if they do, then I will report it to the city council. As far as with the forensic audit, I'm not sure if they're going to wait until the end to release their findings, or if they will give updates. I can ask the partner in charge, because I have been in contact with him, and see if he can give me that information, and if he does, I would be happy to share that with the city council.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll open it up to the council if anybody has any questions regarding the update that the mayor gave.
I have a
Councilwoman Johnston?
quick question. Understanding that everything that's already happened is under investigation, and that's not something that anyone can talk about, for the money going forward, the ARPA funds and the the rest. And I don't entirely know what I'm asking, so pardon my ignorance. Is there a way to create something, like, is there a way to share with the public or the people that keep asking about funds? Like, is there a way to share information that's not putting anything at risk, but also sort of trying to build back trust that this, I guess I'm just wondering, like, what, I know these are not ordinary times, but is there something extraordinary that could be published around those funds that would help?
Well, first off, in other words, now you're talking about the CARES Act or the ARPA funds?
Either.
Okay. ARPA, I'll start with that one. The ARPA funds, and everyone should have received it, because I know I sent it to the chairman and he did distribute it. To give everyone comfort, that money was put immediately into an interest-bearing account, and it's growing interest every day. And every penny of it was there, and everybody's seen a, picture speaks 1,000 words from the account. And if we have to do that every month for assurance, I have no problem with doing that. That would not be a problem, because until we actually, we just closed on the questionnaires on Friday. Now we have to put everything together, take a look at it, have a couple of public hearings on my side, put a plan together, and then what will happen is with that plan will be turned over to the city council for all your due diligence, however you see fit to do it, whether you have public hearings or however you do it. That's the ARPA funds. As far as the CARES Act, that is what is under the forensic audit. And unfortunately, as I just said, I can contact the partner to find out if he'll give updates, but they may not, because they, and I don't want to speak for the partner, so I can try to find that information out. If he allows updates, absolutely, I would bring them to the council. But again, I am not part of that audit, so I don't, I'm not actively involved in that audit, and nor should I be. Because one thing about auditors, and I said this earlier, auditors should be independent of who they're auditing, which is the city right now. So it looks better with somebody independent, has no relationships with us. They get, just, I hate to go back, but just the facts is what we're going to get. And that's what we want. We want answers, but we want honest, truthful, factual answers when we get done with this.
Thank you.
Councilwoman McGee?
You know, understanding the times and situation that we're in, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the residents who are in need of support and financial assistance, especially during the pandemic. And then it's also sad knowing that a person in a professional environment has been helpful, but has an issue, you know? And so my question is, Mayor, like, what will your goal be moving forward to continuously build trust with the public? Because I think that's important right now, especially with all of us in these different positions, making sure that we're moving forward and that we're strategically planning, and so that, you know, these things don't happen again. So if you could just.
Well, honestly,
expand on that.
my personal feeling in moving forward, I don't think we can honestly move forward until we have the investigations and the audits, especially the forensic one. Because this way then we can make the necessary changes in internal controls, which is our checks and balances in City Hall, to assure people that this is not going to happen again. But until we have exactly what happened, we'd only be guessing right now, and I don't want to do that. We have 2 excellent audit firms conducting the audits. I'm sure they're going to move as quickly as possible to get answers. And as soon as we have answers, it will be shared with the council and also the public. I think in order to heal and move forward, it's like anything else. You have to first know the extent of it and then put measures in place to make sure it doesn't happen again, and that's how you can heal. However, I believe it's going to take time. This has been, you know, a rough few weeks for everyone. I mean, for everyone in City Hall, for the residents, it's just been terrible. And again, it takes time to heal from something like this.
You all set, Councilwoman McGee? Councilwoman Hosky?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the update, Mayor Rossi. So I have a couple of things I want to ask. So to instill public trust back in me as the finance chair of the City Council, I would like to continue the monthly updates of the statement of the ARPA funding. We asked for it in July, which I believe I should have pushed for it sooner. So as we instill trust, as you try to instill public trust in you, I think it's important that we as a city council need to do that as well. So I would like to ask that Frank still do that. I do appreciate you sending that to us, but if we can continue to do that, that would be great. The other thing that I want to ask or suggest, and if you mention this, I know that you said that every check that is going to be more than $5,000 would be signed off by you or your executive assistant, and I appreciate that. I think that's a good control. What I would also like to suggest that if there is anybody, say it's 4,500, but maybe anyone, you know, multiple users, multiple, you know, cherry vanilla sodas come in and, you know, you get 3 checks from them, you know, at the 3rd one, let's take a moment, you know, and that come before you, just so that no one is skating in underneath being undetected. And I'm not saying that would happen, I'm just saying that it could just be another roadblock to ensure that somebody doesn't get over on us, so. That's all I have.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I gave one of the biggest control changes. We've already implemented other ones as well. I don't want to disclose everything,
Oh.
but I wanted to put the $5,000 out there so people had assurance about that. So we are going to, it's kind of like, you know, your security plan. You don't want to give out the roadmap ahead of time. We are going to do our absolute best until we get the findings from the auditors, and then we make other changes that they are telling us to make.
Right, and again, I said that, you know, maybe you already mentioned it or you have, but just that there's some type of red flag if there's a vendor that, you know, is coming through regularly or is on repeat, we can just look at it. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Is there any other council members that have any discussion Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to know that we are doing the forensic audit, and listening to some of the people tonight and my fellow council people, there's no doubt that the public trust has been shattered in this council, administration. A number of us, we have to restore and regain that public trust, and we have to make sure that something like this never happens again. And as a citizen and resident, a lifetime resident, it's upsetting, it's frustrating, it's maddening, and this should not have happened. Should not have happened. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen, for your comments. Does anyone else that have any comments, discussion regarding this? Councilman Massaro?
My question, Mayor, you and I really know a forensic audit takes a long time, and really, they don't give you information as they go. They wait until they do the whole thing. My question is, if they find other individuals involved in this, is this all going to take place of what was said at the beginning, they all pay restitution of what they did? I mean, who has the control over that? They're not the auditors.
Well, the way it's going to work is once the auditors have findings, they will present. They will not only, now the forensic auditors actually are working for OPM, for Secretary McCaw. So the first person they will more than likely report it to is their client, which is this point in time, Secretary McCaw. They only bring the information. They don't decide about sentencing or anything at all like that. That would be up to, law enforcement, and whether or not people are arrested, and then they're, of course, they're given their due process, they're presumed innocent until proven guilty, and it will go along like that. But I definitely want to say from my part that I believe that they should be prosecuted, anyone that we can prove this with, because this is a hit. And we're one of the three, we're one of the three municipalities that are under state review, and this is what had to happen. So it is terrible. It is gut-wrenching. It has not been an easy few weeks for anyone in City Hall, including myself, and I'm sure it hasn't been an easy few weeks for the City Council or the residents. But we have to keep moving forward, and we have to continue to try to find out what happened and do corrective action to make sure it does not happen again.
Thank you. And I feel the same, that it hurt all of us, not just you individually, but all of us, including the taxpayers. And it's very, very saddening to me to know an individual that I've known since he was a kid, that something like this would happen. And it's very shocking when I thought we had the city going forward. And it's a slap in our face, your face, and a slap in the taxpayers' face, as far as I'm concerned. My heart is broken over it, and I'm sick over it. And I have a lot of good council members here, as my fellow council people. They've worked very hard on it and trying to keep the city above water, and something like this happens. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Any other discussion? Seeing none, thank you for the update, Mayor. Okay, next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the October 12th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Bruno. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stacy. Take your pick. Is there any discussion?
Discussion? I'd like to amend them on page 2 to just add, Mayor Rossi said that I requested the proof of funds, that it was an action item, so I just think it should be listed.
So you want to amend to say that you had requested a...
Councilwoman Hosky requested proof of funds of the ARPA money.
Okay, proof of ARPA money funds. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Stacy, if I could ask you to pass out tonight's communications.
We have before us communication A from Chief of Police Joseph Perno regarding Police Department restructuring being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have communication D from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for the month of October 2021, which will be filed with tonight's minutes. We have communication C from tax department regarding abatement of interest for Corjana Farman being assigned to the tax deferral committees, Chairman Massaro. Communication D from Corporation Counsel regarding a resolution for the advertisement of bus shelters being assigned to the Finance Department, Chairwoman Hosky. And lastly, communication E from Mayor Nancy Rossi regarding a resolution for the complete environmental assessment of the Blake Style Thompson property being assigned to the Redevelopment Committee, Chairwoman O'Connor. And that concludes the communications for this evening.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, we will recess into committee meetings. The first committee is the Finance Committee. Councilwoman Hosky.
Thank you, Chairman Quagliani. The time is now 7:44, and your Committee on Finance is started. We have Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilman Massaro, Bruno, and Cohen, and myself acting as chair. We have before us two communications, and we're going to start with communication A with Chief, I can't speak, with Chief Joseph Perno and the West Haven Police Department. So we have West Haven's finest in the back room. Chief Perno, are you coming up with yourself to present? And, oh, we have C2 with us as well. I'm very excited.
With your permission.
Yes, absolutely. I'm learning all the West Haven PD lingo. Can you tell?
I too have trouble through the mask. I just have a short statement to make, so that before you ask for questions. Councilwoman Hosky, members of the City Council, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you regarding this reorganization or restructuring of the police department. For some of you, this may be redundant, but I would like to give you a brief history of how we arrived here today. In the 1990s, Chief Michael Kelly restructured the department into 4 divisions, each headed by a captain. An arbitration award in 2009 gave the city the ability to reduce the number of captains within the police department. Currently, we are at 2, resulting from retirements and the budget reflecting this. This same award also placed new hires on the 401K, so we are dealing with the ramifications of this award on several levels 12 years later. We are here tonight to bring to your attention the impact and the recently enacted Police Accountability Bill will have on the police department in your city. Numerous aspects of this bill will need to be adhered to in order to comply with the bill's directives. Some of the internal components of the bill will deal with internal affair investigations, civilian complaints, and police accreditation, along with the introduction of police body cameras and cruiser cameras. Also included in the bill are numerous training requirements and testing procedures. Tonight before you, which I'm sure you were handed, are 2 flow charts. One is the current and the other reflecting the necessary organizational or structure of the police department to properly maintain the integrity of this department. This can only be obtained by adding a 3rd division, which brings us to why we are here tonight. I, along with the command staff present, are requesting the increase in the budgeted number of captains from 2 to 3. The financial impact of this increase in fiscal year 22 will be absorbed in the wage account. As you are very aware, the department is not fully budgeted of the complement of 121. We have experienced resignations, retirements, bringing our number to 115 presently. This restructuring will not create an increase in the total number of manpower. It will stay at 121. The dollar amount attached to this is equal to $410 a week, or $21,332.05 yearly. While we are speaking of dollars, at this very moment, there's approximately $1 million of equipment sitting in office that must be implemented
by July 1st, 2022. On the flow chart labeled Organizational Chart, October 2021, a third division is listed, the Division of Professional Standards, thus the need for a third captain. This captain will have the responsibility of overseeing the newly implemented cameras and several other aspects of the bill. The implementation of this division, in the opinion of the command staff as well as others we have spoken to in law enforcement, greatly lessens the exposure to liability and frivolous lawsuits. This division will also be a focal point within the department relating to this newly enacted bill and its requirements. Thank you for your attention to this most important matter, and we look forward to a favorable response to begin as soon as possible. I would like to point out how important this division is, that in attendance tonight, there are 3 police commissioners, Deputy Chief Fleming, my current 2 captains, a lieutenant, member of Local 895, and the 2 officers at the back here for your safety and security. I will be happy to answer any questions the council may have, and I thank you again for your time and attention.
Thank you, Chief. So I have a couple of questions, kind of what we discussed last week when we were meeting. The position of captain is, there's no testing that will have to happen. You have a viable candidate right now. I'm a little not as experienced in this conversation as I would like to be, but you know what I'm asking? Like, you have a captain, you won't have to test for it, and you can actually start right away with a go live date of his promotion would be when? If we approved it.
The answer to the question regarding the testing, it is a tested position. We currently do have a list of candidates for that position, and looking for this favorable outcome tonight, we will probably start on November 7th.
Now, when this lieutenant is promoted to captain, it's lieutenant,
Correct.
you would then have a sergeant move right up into lieutenant, and you won't have to test for that either.
Correct. That is, it's already been tested, and there is a current eligibility list.
I was listening last week, and I.
Yes, you were.
There was something else. Okay, so can you give us a little bit more of information, and I think, about the accountability bill and why this is so important? Because you have training that has to happen, you have the $1 million worth of cameras that are sitting in the police station that you need to
Be implemented.
implement it out on the street, the training, the go live. Can you, I mean, why we just can't wait if we want to be out ahead of this?
Yes, we do want to be out ahead of this. We have a timeline of January, having the training of the police cameras, body cameras, the cruiser cameras soon after that. We would like to go on a soft implementation in the April area, that way we can work all of the bugs out and have everyone get accustomed to it, so that come July 1st, we are ready to go and up and running live. As far as other aspects of the police accountability bill, it changes a lot of the training and the retention of the records, and right now, that officer in the training division reports to one captain, but that captain also takes care of the other aspects in that flow chart. It's kind of overloaded on the captains. We are fearful that if it is not spread out evenly, that we are going to lose something, and it is going to open up for a liability, and the accreditation which has to be done per the state bill also.
I appreciate you guys like really being ahead of this. This is just really key, and I just have one more question. How many hours is it going to take? Because I didn't ask this last week and I was mad at myself. What is the training time to get the police officers, you know, like new hire training takes, I don't know how long it takes, but you know what I mean, like is it an 8-hour course? Or-
Wait right there. How long, Joe?
Currently, right now, we have, our body cameras are from the company Axon, which is the taser company. Like the chief had mentioned, we have,
Come, you can, I'm sorry, you should definitely come up.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yes.
How long does it take
Can you
to,
provide
what's the
your name?
training for each officer?
right now, we have a week.
Provide your name first, Captain.
I'm sorry. My name is Joseph Romano, currently a lieutenant here with the West Haven Police Department.
Address, oh.
No,
yes.
usually there.
200 Sawmill Road.
Yeah, 355, oh no, I was gonna say 355
That
Main
Main
Street.
Street.
200, so.
Yeah, was.
And to your question, Mrs. Oski, we have our Axon people coming in from Alabama. They're sending a team from Alabama. Our training will be January 31st through February 4th, so we're anticipating a week-long training block at this time to get every single one of our officers trained during that. So it's gonna be, it's aggressive, it's right around the corner, and like the chief said, we're trying to get it done.
I have another question, I'm sorry. Do you want to show off a little bit and tell them about the warranties and everything that you got for the equipment, which is very key because West Haven's known to just buy stuff and not get the extended warranties.
We
So-
built into the money that was budgeted, first of all, we looked at several products, and the product that was most fitting for our department and the current technology that we have, which is having an upgrade, was the Axon Taser products. With that being said, we negotiated, quote-unquote, with Axon, and we got just over about $250,000 in rebates and discounts. We got a body camera for every officer, cruiser cameras for our vehicles, as well as 60 tasers, which we probably would not have been able to get at any time soon. The ones that we have 22 new ones and 25 older ones that if they break, Taser just told us to throw them away, they will not service them. And the 22 that we have are probably a year to a year and a half, maybe not even, away from having the same result.
So July 1st is the state's mandate to go live. What is your thought on how, like, when do you think you'll start trialing it or be able to go live?
We will definitely be live by July 1st. We hope to be live
Earlier.
prior to that, so we can have the officers accustomed to it, so that they're not fumbling with it, et cetera.
Okay. I'm done, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not really done, but I'm gonna stop for now. Anyone else have any questions? Councilwoman Hamilton?
Hello, Chief and other officers. I just want to clarify something. So I'm looking under the green part. This is Captain of Professional Standards Division, and this would be the new section.
Correct.
Coming with this, right? So I noticed, first of all, can you tell me what DOIT is?
Do it, Department of Information Technology. That's our technical division.
Like the IT?
Yep.
department? Okay. And then above that, it says hiring. So to implement all of this, to get it going, will you have to have more hires on
That-
officers?
That hiring is basically internal hiring for jobs. That's not what, that
Like
wouldn't be,
promotions or different positions?
or jobs that need to be filled on a daily basis, overtime, et cetera. That's the hiring.
Okay, all right. That's good.
The recruitment is what you're talking about, that,
Okay. Thank you. I'm through.
Okay. Councilman, Brennan?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Lieutenant Romano, I'm aware that you have hundreds of hours invested in this, and to you and to the department. To be where we are today versus where we were a year ago is an outstanding achievement. A year ago, we didn't know where we were, we didn't know how we were gonna get here, and here we are with hundreds of hours of time to get where we are. I just wanna say, good job.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. That's all I got.
Councilman McCollum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Chief, when we approved the contract with Axion, I said it then, I'll say it again, you've done a fantastic job truly negotiating that contract, the value added that we got, the financial terms that we got, and all of the value added, some of which you just mentioned tonight. I did want clarification on one thing, just so I'm clear, because obviously an investment, long overdue investment that we need and we want to implement, we want to, still be the best in state police that I believe that we are. Right now, you said we're at 115 of the 121, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And just a little clarification here, when you mentioned the $21,332, can you just explain that that was the extra money that it would cost? Because then you said I wasn't going to, I just want a clarification on that number again.
Oh, that's just to point out the difference between a grade A patrolman and a grade A captain.
Okay, so that's, but, and then finally, just so that I'm clear, because that was the addition, if you will, or the extra, financial extra, if you will. And then finally, if I can remember my question, this, I'm gonna use the word shuffling, if you will, or, keep the promotion and the transfer of lieutenant to captain, et cetera, that we just went through here. We will still be able to, or we're still looking to fill the other 6 right now. We're at 115, but we're looking to fill the other 6 right now. We're having trouble filling the other 6 right now, because you said attrition. Where do we stand?
That's a whole other meeting, so.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, because when you basically said it wouldn't cost, that's just basically, our budget's still based on 121, that was the point you're
Correct.
making.
Nothing is changing on the 121.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not hindering that, okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Massaro?
What I see here, you had a problem with span of control. You had 2 captains doing almost everything. You need a 3rd captain to cut down some of the control of your department. Because your span of control is overwhelmed by your 2 captains.
I
So
could change a
see
few
your
things on
purpose.
this, sir, and make it 4 if you'd like.
We did talk about
stretch
that,
it.
don't say I didn't mention it.
But I can see the purpose for this.
That and the additional responsibilities that this bill places on departments, yes, 2 is nearly impossible. We will do the best we can with 3. And like the Councilwoman said, we may be back here again, so, but we'll try not to.
That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, does
I don't know, but
anyone inside the committee, because I haven't opened it up to the entire council, any item, ready? Okay. Go ahead.
First of all, Chief, thank you, the whole department, guys, I applaud you all. I am definitely for this. I see how it makes the job a little easier, and that's not a lot easier. I know you want that 4th one, but let's go easy.
Baby steps.
Right. So I am definitely for getting the 3rd captain here and making the job, so each captain, they can control each job a little bit better. That's pretty much all I have.
Chief, thank you. Councilwoman Hamilton asked my main question. I wanted to know what "do it" meant also. And I'd like to echo Councilman Gary, that I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I like that you're being proactive to get ahead of this new bill. I think it's really important that we put the 3rd captain in tonight. I don't see how you're going to follow the bill without him.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Well, what do you want me to say? I mean,
Chief?
listen, no, only kidding. So, listen, I think spending money sometimes we're always adverse by nature to spend money. And I think we've done things on the cheap for very, very long in the city. And we cut, and we cut, and we cut, and we cut so much that sometimes things like we're going through right now come home to roost because we don't have the necessary staffing to be able to make sure that we could operate a truly consistent operation. So, listen, full disclosure, we've said it before, when I was the chief of police, I was very fortunate to have 4 captains, right? And I think those particular divisions are appropriate. I think you've come a long way with this division, and especially the division of professional standards, because really we all have to check ourselves all the time. So if that's where accreditation is, which is so important, right? I mean, if we're following the accreditation and we're living by the policies of best practices, then some of those other things won't follow, like lawsuits or inconsistency or whatnot. So in my mind, sometimes you just got to spend the money to get a better product, and we could only do so much. Listen, I don't have to preach to whether it be the police department or the community. Life is very complicated now. Everything is very, very difficult. Your world is extremely busy. Not only your regular world, but the cyber world is extremely busy. And all of these things only help all of you to do your job and respond to the community. So again, I think my message is that, yes, I mean, I'm in favor of this proposal, but the city really has to look at, and right away when we get the budget every year, we look to say, what could we cut? What could we cut? What could we cut? And we really, I think, need to spend more time on recognizing what happens when we have one person doing 5 or 6 different jobs in many departments throughout the city, and really spend the money to make sure that we don't have gaps. So I think this is, I commend you, Chief, for doing all this with 2 captains, with the amount of work that you have to do. To me, this is an appropriate spend, so thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councilwoman McGee?
Thank you. Hello, Chief, Captain. I think it's so important to highlight growth, and this was something that we discussed, this was something that we discussed prior, wanting body cameras, knowing that the system needs to be updated in order to store what's on the cameras. And so I think it's just important to speak to, one, this actually happening. It's happening, it's on its feet. We have the equipment, and to have had this all happen within $1 million budget, right, is amazing. So I just wanted to highlight and shout you all out for growth, because I think that that's important. Anything that contributes to a city moving forward, and especially when these discussions have come up a lot, not only in the council, but constituents, during protests, but now that it's happening is a great thing. So I'm in favor, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Well, I'll say what I said at the police commission meeting. I'm very, very excited about this. I'm excited about the city getting body cams. When I first got in, that was one of the things I wanted, but the financial condition, we weren't unable to do it at that time. I think it helps everybody and it protects everyone if you can go to the video and see exactly what happened. So I'm glad, very, very happy about that. I'm glad about the initiative and putting the other captain back, because I do believe supervision is important. And this way, you're going to, get a lot of freedom of information requests, and you need to have people designated to do that, so it facilitates that and gets it to them quickly. So I think that that's important. And a great job by all. Lieutenant Romano, I said it then, I'll say, great job, Chief, Deputy Chief. It's wonderful, and I'm glad that we're moving forward. We're getting into the right century with the right equipment. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So real quick, just a side note that I did contact CCM to get some information about salaries and how we compare I sent that to your Commissioner Carano. So that is something, from Tuesday's meeting that we talked about with the mayor and Councilman Bruno. So I did follow through on that. I found that out. And I also did get an update about the police pension. The mayor didn't mention it, so I'm going to. The actuary, I spoke to Frank, and they have all the information that they need to create the scenarios with the new mortality assumptions, and there's just a whole lot of terms that he was using that I wasn't really following, but I got the point that we should be hearing something very soon about the 3 different scenarios, I believe, that we asked them for. So more to come. I want you to know that it has been really important to me, as it has been to the mayor, to try to, figure this out for you guys. And that I'm going to keep talking about it and bringing it up as, I don't know, do you want to say something? Because I don't want to speak for you, I'm sorry.
No, and I've been trying to get it back since 2009. It should have never left. And that was the unfortunate part, and I spoke against that at the time because I knew it would just end up, a disaster, and that's exactly what I think has happened. So I'm glad that we're all on the same page and trying to work towards this. And we are going to work with Milliman. They were talking about changing the mortality rate. That's what the finance director. The trouble is if we do it in this year, FY22, we would have to come up with $1 million. So that's why we're going to have to defer to the following year. And we're still going to change the mortality rate, but it won't be as significant to be able to absorb $1 million in this budget. I mean, we're not halfway through, but we're definitely over a quarter of the way through. But we are actively going to work on this because I think it's important, and I thank Chairwoman Hosky for getting the salary information, because it was very, very important, and pretty much what you had already told us, but at least this way we have documentation. So again, thank you. Thank you very much, because I think this is going to, I really want to move forward with something, and I'm glad that the council does as well.
So we're paying attention. I keep notes when you guys talk to me, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything? Are we good? All right, thank you so much.
Just to expand, I'm not sure if you wanted to share with the council, there's a current testing process with the police entry exam, and there were 27 applicants for 6 departments. There were times when we would have 500 applicants. So it's becoming a chore, and piggybacking on the salary, that's an issue that we have in this city, selling this department with the salary that we have. I mean, we play it up as best we can. We have a good department, we have good people here, and we show them that's the face that we put forward to these prospective candidates.
Thank you, Chief.
I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So yours now? What's the motion to move, Councilwoman Hosky?
No, there's not hold on. There's not like a resolution in here. So, the motion is to, for us to approve an increase in the FY22 budget listed personnel for the rank of captain.
Motion
All in favor? Any opposed?
Just a point of order, is there a start date?
November 7th.
Stacy, did you get all that?
Somebody would like to repeat it.
You want to try again, Councilwoman Hosky?
Yeah, there's not like,
The motion would be to approve the police department's restructuring plan effective November the 7th. November the 7th. They already have the money within their budget for this year, is that correct? Correct. So I think that would be the motion, to approve the restructuring plan effective November the 7th. Is that all right?
that is perfect.
Okay, go right ahead and finish the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So then we have communication D from Corporation Council regarding the resolution for the advertising of business shelters.
Madam Chair.
Hi, Lee.
Hello. So, this is,
Councilman, we just need a motion on the floor before we start discussion.
oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Have forgot motion to bring this out favorably. All those in favor?
No, we just need a second and then discussion.
Did I just, I'm so out of my sorts. Can I have a motion? Thank you. A second? Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Okay, discussion? Yes. Kylie?
hello, Madam Chair. So, this was an idea we had to try to make the bus shelters look nicer and monetize them and maybe create more bus shelters. And the added vision is to try to give some neighborhood shelter appeal, if you will. So for instance, the shelter in and around the VA could be red, white, and blue. Shelters by the beach could be seashell, kind of beachy colors. Shelters up at UNH could be Charger colors. Shelters near Notre Dame High, shelters near the high school, so on and so forth. But Mr. Watson is here. This was put out to bid. He was the only bidder. We met with him to develop the idea. I think he's got a great idea. It will provide revenue. The revenue can be used either in the general fund or to build more shelters or to improve shelters. And we have about a dozen in the city. And so I will let Mr. Watson tell you what his company's vision is for our bus shelters.
Thank you, Lee. First of all, I think you will agree with me, this will be a profit center for the city. There will be some initial investment from the city, but eventually will be a profit center. Well, excuse me, please forgive my speech. I've had oral surgery. I also think it's an age thing, now that I'm over 39. Anyway, how we propose this is we will establish advertising on the shelters. And the advertising revenue, 35% of that will come to the city. The city's bus shelters currently are not ADA approved. However, they are grandfathered in. All new shelters will have to be ADA approved for wheelchairs and seats with backlights. The current shelters also, 90% of them need repair. Our company can do that. We also plan, there are currently now 10 shelters, is that correct, Lee? Yeah. I think it's 10. And what we plan to do is put 2 advertising displays on each shelter, which will generate revenue for the city. The repair of the shelters, what we plan to do is lift the current shelter, take it to our warehouse, replace it with another shelter. When we lift the old one, we'll install a new one and take the old one back, repair it, and do the same thing with all 10 current shelters. We also plan, with the city's approval, to build many, many more. This will help the commuters, the public transit commuters, who are standing outside with snow, rain, and heat, will help the ridership. In Europe, ridership is gone sky high because of the cost of fuel. The same thing is going to happen in the United States. Public transit is going to dominate. It will dominate. And this will become a profit center for the city over time. What I plan to establish will be a very profitable enterprise for the city. In 10 years, then can sell, go out for bid, and generate a lot more income. The investment for the city is small in comparison to the benefits to the city long term. Not only providing essential accommodation for ridership of the city, but will be a profit center. Anyone have questions?
Thank you so much. So I do have a few questions myself. I wanted to, and I don't know what it would be called, I called it myself like do no harm, is that I know there's a list of, you know, you can't have guns and you can't, we're not gonna be, have anything, you know, advertisements for cigarettes and have advertisements for alcohol. I guess my question is what about advertising certain, advertisements, for, say if it's across the street from a restaurant and then you, an advertisement comes up for another restaurant in the city. I'm just thinking like, to me that'd be like do no harm. Or if you put up something for a garage that does oil changes across the street from a garage that's there that has oil changes.
Yeah, so let me read from the proposed contract,
Is
prohibited.
that in the contract and I just didn't?
Yeah, I would say that's in the contract under prohibited advertising. So the contractor will ensure to make best efforts that advertisements will comply with our guidelines. We'll have guidelines, similar to what you say, that will be of a reputable nature and conform to community-accepted standards. All ads, artwork, copy, illustrations are subject to the city's discretion, and its decision shall be final, which means you could reject any ad you want. The city shall have no obligation to the contractor or its customers in the event the city rejects any proposed advertising. So that's a blanket. We have full say. This is, you know, this language the contractor is happy with, and he thinks he can work with it, so it shouldn't be a problem.
No, and that's, I'm literally just trying to make sure, because that is general, but was it specific enough in my mind? What about, I wanted, and all of the shelters will be ADA compliant.
So, yeah, if a shelter is, I would say rejuvenated, then it will come back as an ADA compliant, and Mr. Watson's also going to look into if, he's found some shelters, if you add a solar component, you can have some electrics. You know, there are shelters in New York that have Wi-Fi. I mean, we're going to look into all different aspects to make the shelters modern and look nice.
So that leads me into my next question, or concern. So, I did some research when I read my packet, you know, my due diligence. I reached out to people that I know in the transit community who work in bus transit. And I know that in a neighboring town, they did have their amenities in the bus stops increased certain behaviors that might not really be conducive to a good environment, meaning that people might have moved into the bus shelters.
Can I answer that?
And I'm thinking if somebody needs shelter, they need shelter, and that wouldn't bother me. But then I also know that that is just not a great, you know, people want the bus to be able to go get out of the rain. So I'm just concerned about the bus shelter having so many amenities that it would just, I don't know, I'm just, what?
Well, Mr. Watson is the one who has experience with this, and then I'll follow up after.
that is a major concern with Stanford, Bridgeport, and other cities. And what I recommend, when you have a bench, you have armrests in the bench to prevent anyone laying down. And you do not have heaters in the shelter. No heating. That will prevent a lot of people living in the shelter. Armrests in particular on the benches.
Okay. No, thank you. Any other questions? Councilman Bruno?
Thank you for coming in. If I missed it, I apologize. What is the city's outlay going to be on this per shelter?
Depending on how many you're going to build, how many more you're going to build. The current shelters, I estimate the repair on each might be $1,000, $1,500, something like that.
So you're
It's not gonna
saying
be a
it's
great amount.
roughly $1,000 to $1,500 per shelter to get them up
Yeah.
to date. That'll be the city's
Yeah.
outlay per
And-
shelter.
Yeah, depending on the damage, I haven't looked at all of them, but some of them, let me rephrase that, anywhere from 1,000 to maybe 2,500.
But their obligation is large too, so they're only going to take shelters that they know they've already sold the advertising for. So, yeah, there's an outlay, but the revenue is going to be coming in right after. In other words, people don't want to advertise in the old shelter, they want to advertise on the new shelter. So you're already going to have sold advertising on the new shelter before you engage in that.
Okay, so we're at $1,000 to $2,500.
Yes.
And then you're saying that we're going to get 35% of the revenue that shelter brings to the city?
Correct. So the initial outlay and the revenue you will get back over the years is phenomenal. And what happens is that enterprise now becomes a very profitable center for the city that can be sold off.
Okay, and like in Stanford and around?
Stanford, yeah. No,
They don't have a problem renting these?
No.
No.
No. I'll give you an example. The billboards
Yeah.
that you have in the city, those are sold anywhere from $900 to $1,200 every 4 weeks. I plan to sell what's called faces. There'll be 2 faces to each shelter, somewhere around $300 to $350 each. They will
And
be
what period of time are they on for?
every 4 weeks.
4 weeks, okay.
Yeah, we bill every 4 weeks. Now, the space, what we call the face, is 4 foot by 6 foot.
4 foot by 6 foot?
Yes. Now, if we plan to have, as Lee mentioned, power there, then the cost, the rental space will go up if we have power.
I understand.
We'll have LED lighting there.
Thank you very much. Nothing else, Madam Chair.
You said it's gonna cost us anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 to revise these shelters that we have now.
The current shelter, correct.
And you said the most you could get out of advertisements anywhere from $300 to $350
Every 4 weeks.
every 4 weeks.
One face.
One face.
And 2 faces per shelter. 2 advertisements per shelter.
Every 4 weeks.
Let me explain that. Every shelter will have what we call 2 advertising faces. We will sell those anywhere from one face, $300 to $350 every 4 weeks. So that's $700 every shelter, every 4 weeks. and the city will get 35% of that.
So you're saying, I just can't picture this. Every 4 weeks, you're gonna get say $650 for the two advertisements. So the city's gonna end up with $227 and some change every
Correct.
4 weeks.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Per
Every 4
shelter.
weeks, times 10.
Yeah.
per shelter.
But don't forget, it's gonna cost us $1,500 to $2,500 to revise these.
Yeah, but that's your initial cost. Over years, that, your initial cost will be diminished by the amount of money you're going to get from the revenue collected, from advertising.
They don't make any money unless they sell the advertising. So the ads, under the current scheme, each shelter pays for itself in 6 months, and then, then there's no, the cost is just,
Yeah, but if we don't sell
periodic
no
maintenance.
advertisements, we don't make no money either.
Say that again?
If we don't have any advertisements on them shelters, we don't have no money, we don't make no money either.
Well, then there won't be, a shelter isn't going to be refurbished unless it's got ad space to sell on it. He's not just going to go around refurbishing shelters. He has to be able to have the ad space already locked in to refurbish the shelter.
First of all, you're going to have to refurbish those shelters anyway. Whether you're going to have advertisements on them or not, you're still going to have to do it. They're in disrepair.
Are these advertisements guaranteed for a year?
No, no,
4 weeks.
no.
Weekly? 4 weeks?
Every 4 weeks.
Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, I
I'm sorry.
figured, yeah, I'm sorry. He's done. I could tell by the whole body language. He didn't say it, though.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, as was already stated, to refurbish each of these shelters, once we get them to rent, they're $1,000 to $2,500 per refurbished. Now, you also, or the proposal also mentioned that we hope to have, to quote you, many, many more throughout the city as this catches on. To get a new shelter, in other words, right now we're refurbishing them for let's say $2,000 a pop, right? For a new shelter, what is the cost of a new shelter? Because those are also, once you reach our 10 capacity, right?
So somebody hit one of our shelters up near UNH,
Right.
and that's how I learned we had bus shelters. So I was given about 2 days' notice to try to recover the money. A shelter can cost in excess of $30,000 for a new shelter. Mr. Watson is correct. If you tour the shelters, and, there are shelters in front of senior centers, there are shelters throughout the community, there are shelters in places where we want people to use bus space. There's rust, there's rot, and to the idea that you're not going to have to spend any money on shelters, I guess you could take that position, but I don't think it's really logical. This is an opportunity, it's tried and true, it's worked in other communities, and they're in the business, they can't make any money if this doesn't work, right? This won't fail. We can terminate the contract at any time. This is an opportunity that seems like it makes money in other communities, so we would like to try it here, and the upshot is both revenue and refurbished shelters.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to, hey, listen, I think it's a great idea to refurbish the 10 shelters, and because I know from my own experience and my own business that, and to Councilman Massaro's concern, is the retail cost of $300, $350 to basically have something for 4 weeks is a very, very good deal, if you will. And I personally, you're gonna have a month here or there that maybe you have a vacant side to it, if you will, but by and large, once you refurbish it, and just with the local business and so forth, I don't see what the 10, and I, to the point that you made, if it ends up being whatever the 35% is, if it's $250 or whatever it might be a month that we get or what have you, it's pure profit for the city for the most part, and we have to, even if we didn't do anything, I would imagine we're going to be required, or we are required to make them ADA compatible anyway, you know, even though they're grandfathered in, at some point they're gonna break the shelters. At some point, we have to replace the shelter anyway. We're gonna have to buy a new shelter, which could be like 30,000 if that's the number that you basically got. I'm only being a little cynical in the sense being that I don't know right now, but none of us have a crystal ball if we're gonna have many, many more of these. Do I think we need more than 10 in the city? Yeah, I do, you know, but I don't know what that number is. I'd also, the other concern that I have, and it's just my reading of the contract, it's not a right or wrong, I just want a clarification, is Section 5, I don't know what page, I don't see a page number on here, I'm sorry. Section 5, the city's obligation. I'll just read to you the 5.1. It says, "The city will not limit the number of bus shelters now or future owned or controlled by the city to contractor for the sole use to generate advertising revenue." So my question is this, is, just to play this out, let's just say that we, I don't know, in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, whatever, that we basically refurbish all 10 shelters because it gets popular and you do them as you do them, and your company wants to do an 11th, 12th, and 13th shelter, and you, I don't know, play it out. We'll go to the corporation council, you go to the mayor, and you say, we want to put one here, here, and here. And if the council comes to the council, whatever, and we say, no, we only want one here or here, do we have the right to reject your location? Because the way this is worded to me,
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just.
Councilman, so this is worded, all he's saying there is that, you know, the shelters he has now, he has a right to advertise on, right?
Right.
We can't shrink that number after the contract starts.
Right.
So if there's a shelter that exists with the city, he gets fair game to advertise
Okay,
on.
for the existing.
But he can't force us to build new ones, he can't relocate.
That's what come out, when I was reading it, it just seemed to me like, you know, I know myself that I can think of a half a dozen places that we probably need a shelter, you know, but at the same time, it's not profitable for the city right now to be spending $30,000 on its own, you know? I mean, things can basically happen. I think someone might have asked another question, I'm sorry. Yeah, so realistically, if we were to go forward with something like, to go forward with this, when would you, I mean, you obviously have, you've looked at the 10 shelters, you might have picked your top 3 or whatever. If I had to start today, I would go here, here, or here. When would the wheels start turning, I guess? Like, once the contract's signed? Is it like a month from now? Is it, because we can release ourselves from this deal at any time, from what the Corporation Council just told us. So would you start next week, next month? What's the timeline that you're looking at?
Good point.
Yeah.
The current shelters that need repair, what we plan to do is we plan to build an exact copy of the current 10 shelters, have one on hand. We will then come along on a Sunday morning, replace the old shelter with the new one, exact copy. And what we'll have on it will be 2 advertising faces, ready to sell.
So you're basically, let me use this word, so the new shelter, while you're refurbishing the first shelter, you're just gonna put another one in place as a whole.
Exactly.
And then after that, you're just gonna go refurbish,
All of them,
replace.
all 10 of them.
So realistically, you probably have, or you're already keying in on a couple of advertisers that you could, you already have somebody in mind, obviously, that, you know, that would.
Well, the first year, and I'm not sure, I can't predict accurately, given the current economic conditions. But I foresee the city may have an outlay that the return will not be quite the same. But it will be minimal. Thereafter, though, the city will generate income.
Understood. Yeah,
Yes.
understood, yeah.
Now, and let me explain to you what we're doing in Stamford. Now, Stamford, as you know, is a very, very wealthy city. In fact, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. What we plan to do there is we have 105 faces, advertising faces. We are going to build 50 more and 2022. Now, we are going to generate a hell of a lot more revenue per face there than we can in West Haven. I'm sure you can recognize that. Also, what we're going to do is build LED flip screens. Picture a bus shelter with an advertisement on it, 4 foot wide, 6 foot high. We will flip advertising, high definition flip advertising. Your television is somewhere around 300, maybe 300 nits brightness. These will be 3,500. And they will flip advertising every 10 minutes. The city will have control over our server, where the city then can stop an ad instantaneously and put weather alert, police activity, amber alert. They will have control over that. Not only that, we will be able to measure the gender of people walking by, the number of cars passing in real time. Real time. In other words, we can say to McDonald's, corporate, from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock, you can advertise breakfast. 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, lunch. We're going to charge a lot of money for that. Because it's real time. And we will be able to tell an advertiser real time who the ad is reaching. We can do the same thing in West Haven.
I have one more question, just because he brought up something that I understand that it's going to give you the demographics, which are going to make it more marketable for people to know where they want the kiosk, where they want to sell and so forth. But you brought up something that, up until this point, and I believe it's still to be the case, you're talking about 2 stagnant, 4 weeks, 2 stagnant messages, okay?
Right.
But in some cities, and you mentioned the digital, you mentioned the LEDs, you can see on the highway today that the messages can change every 30 seconds, every 10 seconds.
No, those are 8 seconds.
Yeah, but you're not doing that here, because then you could actually sell 4 ads, I'm being arbitrary, you could sell 4 ads on one side and 4 ads on the other side, because you're changing out the ads every minute or something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Every 10 seconds.
But right now, we're really just talking about the shelter. Yeah, you're talking about the shelters that, at least for the refurbished shelters anyway, you're talking just 2, because to your point, I do a little bit of this in my personal business, and I can tell you that the bulletins or the billboards, the larger signs in this area, in New Haven County, they really range anywhere, from like about $900 to like $3,800, based on where you are at, based if you're on the highway.
On the highway, yeah, right.
You know, based if you're downtown, so it really, it's all very, very dependent. But then, when you do what you just said, that you're doing, you have the option to change images, now you're in a whole different world of major income. Now, you can't do it with your refurbished ones probably, because they probably need a lot more. But that is interesting, because after you refurbish these 10 and you look out to the future and the technology at hand, now you're really talking about even a bigger revenue, or potentially a bigger revenue stream, you know? Anyway, but I'm sorry, that's all I have.
But even the current shelters, we can replace part of it with an LED screen. But
you're not-
that'll be in the future.
No, in the future, but we have that capability in the future.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So this is very sophisticated and certainly will bring some pop to the city. Sounds exciting. How about the maintenance of that? That seems like, there'll be a lot of people using these shelters, a lot of wear and tear on it. What is the maintenance of how does that look? Like, does the city maintain that? Let's say something breaks, and it sounds like it's pretty sophisticated. Will that be on the city to maintain?
And I can answer that two ways. The advertisement, we take care of it. We install them, we remove them. And there's no cost to the city whatsoever for that. However, if there's some damage to the shelter, then the city will pay for the damage, but not the advertisement. The advertisement is picture wallpaper. It's a 3M product where we tear the back off and we stick it up on a panel. That's it. And we have 3 or 4 of those. We just go over the top of those. When we get 3 or 4, 5 of them, we tear them off and we start all over again. There's no cost to the city whatsoever for that. No.
It's a little confusing. When he talks about damage, what he's talking about is the contract language is the contractor repairs current and all future bus builds. So once they touch it, they bring it in, they clean it up, they fix it. But, if a shelter was, hit by a car or something, we'd probably be liable for that.
Also, too, this is kind of a little away from it, but still about shelters. So between Malloy Road and UNH, there's no shelters at all. So, but that is a state road. Would the city ever do anything, would we ever be able to put shelters between that stretch? It is a bus line.
Yeah, so we have to have an agreement with the state and Connecticut Transit. Now, Connecticut Transit owns some bus shelters, but the bus shelters that we're talking about are all owned by the city, meaning Connecticut Transit has no interest and has no program where they're going to build the bus shelters. You could really go either way, but if this program's going successfully, yes, you would want to build bus shelters in different locations where, like you say, you think you're going to get some pop. And again, if we're going to continue to pursue the walkable cities and sustainable cities initiatives, we're going to need to keep encouraging people to utilize this form of transportation. So yeah, I would envision that in the future. But the only thing you'd have to keep your eye, people will start wanting things. His group is going to want to put them in certain places because of, the advertising dollar. And
Right.
certainly around UNH, there'd be an idea that there is. The beach during the summer, certainly. I mean, there are certain areas, the train station doesn't have a bus shelter, which is remarkable, really. But there might be locations where you go, well, I don't know, is that really gonna, if nobody's driving by? So that will be a push and pull that the city council will have to deal with at a future date.
Well, Route 1 is a very busy for.
Yeah, no, I would think that would, I can't imagine why that wouldn't be productive.
So, just so I can understand this too, so initially, you would bring this structure back, you would take it, right? And then you would bring this brand new structure already set up with LED and all that fancy stuff that you said, right? And that would be the last time that you really needed to do any of the electrical part of it. It would just be occasionally changing the wallpaper of it, if I understood you.
Right. That's it. Now, when you're talking about LED, high definition, that will be years to come.
Okay. So what will it look like now, and forgive me that, what will it look like if we were to start today? So it wouldn't be that fancy when we start.
Oh, if you want, yeah, I can do it. I can do it next month.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right. Also, I know that Councilwoman Hosky has spoke with our grants writer. If you could tell us more about that, I think this would be a perfect segue for that. Please. I'm sorry.
Well, I think I can help with that. So, yes, Councilman Hosky talked to Doug, and Doug talked to me, because you talked to Doug. So Doug Coulter, our grants writer, and so he's already working on initiatives to bring in more grant money to help make this initiative, even bigger, brighter, and better. So hopefully, we can move it along at a greater pace. It would also help, the shelters near our public housing developments I think are, very important, and there's no reason why those shelters shouldn't be part of the service and renovation, and we can make them more comfortable as well. But yes, he's very encouraged that he can get grant money for this purpose.
The other thing I just want to ask, we talked about, we as a city would have control over what kind of ads we put.
Yeah, so let me read the list of things you can't do. So, things that would be barred from the advertising, hopefully many of these are obvious. Nudity, defamatory towards caste, color, creed, religion, nation, community, race, institution. No advertisement of drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco. No advertisement propagating exploitation of women, children. No advertising depicting cruelty in animals. No advertising casting aspersion on any brand, person, or trade. No advertising glorifying violence. No advertising of weapons, firearms, firearm parts, magazines, ammunition. No advertising that is defamatory, libelous, unlawfully threatening, harassing. Advertisings that are considered obscene, we will use the definition of the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act of 1986. And any goods that are prohibited by law, we wouldn't advertise. And we could still go further than that. That's just our guide.
And the city would monitor that.
Yes.
There's also a provision in here on the first,
What, the first page?
Yeah, the first page. Okay. Very important. First page. Whereas it is an express intention of the city that properly allocated for advertising be a non-political forum. Let me explain to you what that means. When you put an advertisement on a bus or a billboard, whatever, and immediately is First Amendment. But putting this in here, what we've done, we have established a forum where it is not public forum. And after a year or so, 2 years, we have established a precedent where I have complied with that. The city has complied with that, and we have established that it is not public forum. In other words, Yale University Law School can't come in and say, look, we want to advertise nudity. It's not public forum. We have established that.
Now, on the flip side, depending on how this goes, for nonprofit organizations and other community announcements, public health, community announcements, whatever we have, we do feel there'll be a way to either have reduced cost advertising for certain organizations, or no space under this program would be blank, right? We wouldn't allow any space to be blank. We'd put a public service announcement or something positive. So it'll just be another way to get public health and other public information out there as well.
One other quick question. Will there be space for West Haven small businesses and such as, would there be any kind of, I'm asking you, any kind of discount for small West Haven businesses? Or would there just be the same rate for everyone?
It starts off at the same rate. If we want to do that, because we're lowering our 35%,
Right.
I mean, we can do that.
Right. There's room to do
Yeah,
that.
he doesn't care.
Right, I think that's why
Yeah.
I asked you. Right.
Also, for nonprofits, we, in other markets, we have 50% off the published rate, and that's on a space available basis. Now, the city could also utilize the advertising that's unused for whatever.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go first in 1 second, because she had mentioned my name and I didn't get a chance to respond. So when I spoke to Doug, our grants writer, it was in regards to contacting the South Central region for New Haven County, Connecticut Transit, because there are grants that could be out there that we could apply to get shelters and bus shelters and that nature. I also did find out that Connecticut Transit does not own any bus shelters. They're not in the business. They don't do any of that. So when people think that it's, oh, that bus shelter called Connecticut Transit, it's never them. It's either the state or the municipality that owns them. But there, again, could possibly be grant money to help us with our initiatives. Councilman Massaro, you raised your hand 5 times.
I got 2 questions. If we were to put a new shelter, like Councilwoman Hamilton said, say on the Boston Post Road, what's your cost of a new shelter?
That would depend on, there's 2 ways of,
The basic one.
well, if you're having an if you're putting a shelter, to answer your question, it would cost anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000.
My second question, who came up with the 35%? Is that your normal contract?
We negotiated that, yeah.
Yeah.
Councilman, are you all
I
set?
have 45%, but that's okay.
Council,
There was only one bidder, Councilman Massaro.
he's fine.
Didn't have a lot of leverage.
Okay, I'm done.
Are you good? Councilman Donovan?
Yes, and I apologize if you did say it earlier. When you replace a shelter, you take our shelter away and you put another one in its place, the new one, does that include the benches? Does that include all that stuff, or are the benches in addition?
Whatever the current shelter that we're replacing, the one when we replace it will be exactly the same
Alright, so-
as the one we're taking out.
Alright, well,
So
that's-
the grandfather,
If we have, we had one that had 2 benches, but now one of them's broken apart, and we want to get 2 benches back there, I'm saying, is that additional cost?
10 years.
For us to get the 2 benches put back in there with the handrails, like you said earlier?
and that is the city's, whatever the city plans, whatever the city
Dealing
wants.
with the shell, correct, in the advertising?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's basically, so we'd have to repair all the benches.
Well, it depends, no, they repair the benches. I think what you're talking about, if the shelters have different, some have 1 bench, some have 2 bench, I mean, he refurbishes the bench, he wants a nice shelter, because he wants the advertising. So they repair the shelters. Now, if we want to start specifying different changes to the shelter, yeah, there might be a cost to us if we change
There
it.
are shelters, bus shelters, that had 2 benches there.
But he will return, whatever the shelter was, he will return a refurbished shelter the same as it was with advertising.
With handrails or without the handrails?
If we want the handrails, they didn't have handrails. If we want the handrails because of the issues brought up,
That's what-
that might be slightly
I
extra.
am, thank you. Perfect. I'm all set.
Councilwoman O'Connor.
You let her go.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mine is just, you were talking about some of them have different amenities. One of the amenities that I think would be important, I've seen other cities have bus shelters that have gardens on top of them for the ecology and the birds and everything. That is one thing that I would like to see be considered here in West Haven, especially in certain areas where we could definitely use not only the beauty, but to attract the birds and the bees that we do need to keep our sustainability.
That is currently not envisioned, but I'm making a note, and I will get my interns working on that to see how that
Thank you.
is envisioned throughout the nation.
So Riley will help, right?
Riley and others, yes.
All right.
Chairman?
So, who's managing this on the city side? Who's gonna handle the revenue transaction? Who's gonna be the censor to say that this belongs, this doesn't belong?
So the shelters are currently managed in the Public Works Department. But we could, I suppose we could designate something different, but that's where they're currently managed. And that's where maintenance or lack of maintenance takes place, and et cetera, et cetera.
And this would be a monthly check that comes to the city, that's revenue? Or
Yeah.
is it every, once a quarter, or how does it work?
You could arrange it any which way, monthly, once a quarter, every 6 months, however you wanted to arrange it. You could designate someone in finance, just like, for instance, senior bus is a certain employee in finance, and she details the bus contract, what their ridership is, what they get paid.
Well, I don't want to do that. I want you or the finance department to do that. So I think, listen, it's been a very robust discussion here about these bus shelters, but I think if this should carry this evening, I think I would like a return plan for next meeting and how we're going to manage this. All right, and then secondly, at the end of the day, and I understand, Councilman Massaro, but we have so much deferred maintenance in this town. We really need to replace and repair these bus shelters and make them ADA compatible. So at the end of the day, before this, it was going to cost us 100%. Now it may cost us a little less than 100%. So, listen, I think that's fine. Again, my bigger concern is the city controls and how this is going to be administered, and the Corp Council promises me that next meeting he'll bring me back how that's going to be done. But beyond that, I'm good, Councilwoman Hosky. Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and your Committee on Finance is closed at 9:00.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. The next committee is the Tax Deferral Committee, Councilman Massaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's 8:58. The tax deferral is now in session. Committee members of the board are Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilwoman Collin, Councilwoman O'Connor, and myself as chair. We brought before us a tax deferral, and looking at the poverty schedule and everything like we have, I'd like to bring a denial motion on this. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Bill. Second?
No second.
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion? All in favor?
We're going for denial or not?
Correct.
Right, tonight. Tonight because of the schedule that we have. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Tax Deferral Committee is now done at 8:59.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Next committee is the Redevelopment Committee, Councilwoman O'Connor.
The time is now 8:59. The Redevelopment Committee, the members here are Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilwoman Johnston, Councilman Donovan, and myself, Councilwoman O'Connor, as chairwoman. Chairman, we've decided to table this communication till the next meeting, please.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. Unfinished business, we moved up the CARES Act update, that was already done. The Economic Business Incentive Program, just to notify the council, that will be on our next agenda for discussion. The council will convene now as a whole. If the clerk could read communication B into the record.
Communication B from tax collector regarding overpayment of refunds for the month of October 21 to be filed with transmitted.
Thank you, Stacy. The first committee to be heard from is the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky.
Thank you, Chairman. The City Council approved the following motion at the regular meeting held on October 25th. Is resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the restructuring of the West Haven Police Department budget listed personnel for the rank of captain,
Effective.
November 7th, 2021.
Councilwoman Hosky's brought forward Communication A from Police Chief Joseph Perno regarding the Police Department restructuring as outlined by Councilwoman Hosky effective November 7th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Cohen. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton.
I just want to thank the police department for all the hard work that you're doing to get this Accountability Act going. I think the residents of West Haven are happy too, so thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move the question. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously.
The City Council approves the following motion at the regular meeting held on October 25th, 2021. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the attached contract between the City of West Haven and Trans Ad Bus Shelter Corporation for maintenance, improvement, enhancement, and advertising purposes of bus shelters owned and maintained by the City of West Haven. Did you want to add an amendment, Chairman?
Yes, and well, you do your first, I don't think I could add it just yet. So,
Maintained by the City of West Haven. No, he says that, thank you. I read everything that was on here for the resolved.
yeah, you could, I'm good, okay. Councilwoman Hosky's brought forward Communication D from Corporation Council regarding a resolution for the advertising of bus shelters. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hamilton. Is there any discussion? Councilman Massaro?
The only thing I was trying to bring up on this here was that for the cost to replace these for 20, I understand what you're all saying, they have to be upgraded. For the cost to replace these at $2,500, I took the most, $2,500. At 35% of what they're selling these advertisements, we're making $227.50 every 4 weeks, if they have the ads sold. If they don't, we're not gonna make that. It's gonna take a long time just to pay off that $2,500 we're gonna invest. That's all I'm saying. If we buy a new one, just figure how long it's gonna take to pay for a new one. I understand they gotta be upgraded. I'm not against it, but I'm just saying it's gonna cost us a long time to pay these things off before we start making money. We're not gonna make money right away in the beginning. That's all I had to say. But I'm for it. Try it.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Johnston?
I'll be so brief. I just wanted to say, unless I heard incorrectly, Peter, that I don't think they're going to refurbish them unless they already have ads ready for that. So in some ways, that's what he said, right? So in some ways, it's actually not that much of a cost. And I love the idea of finding creative ways to make money in the city that doesn't cost us a ton. So, you know, if the renovation is minimal and we ultimately are gonna have to do it anywhere, we're gonna be liable. I mean, if shelters are falling down on people, we'll be liable. So I think it's a cool idea.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnston. Is there any other discussion? I would just like to amend the motion to add that by next meeting, Corp Council brings back to the council a administrative plan on how they'll manage this bus shelter program, including who will be in charge of receiving revenue and who will be the administrative censor, if you will, to determine if the ads are appropriate to be displayed. That's my amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hosky and Councilman Cohen. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll move the question. All in favor of the communication as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next up is the Tax Deferral Committee, Councilman Massaro.
The committee has denied the tax deferral that's brought forward to us.
Councilman Massaro has brought forward communication C from the Tax Department regarding an abatement of interest for Kujana Carmen. The motion of the Tax Deferral Committee is for a denial. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Cohen, Councilman Conlon. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next up is the Redevelopment Committee, Councilwoman O'Connor.
We have decided to table that until the next meeting.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. The Communication E will be held this evening. Adoption of ordinances previously presented. There are none. Are there any council liaison reports? Seeing none, is there any new business? Councilwoman O'Connor.
I would like to ask, and I'm not sure who would ask now, if Nancy has left the room, but I would like the tax assessor to come in and answer a few questions for us on procedures and stuff before she leaves. Who would be the person that
Are you
to
talking about
ask?
the tax assessor or the tax manager?
The tax manager, I'm sorry.
Tax manager, we could send a letter requesting that, she consult with the mayor to come on an agenda either next meeting or the meeting after. We only have two more meetings to this term, so. Stacy, would you get that, a request for Leslie to come speak to the council about tax abatements? Okay?
Thank you.
Any other new business? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
No move.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, we're adjourned.